Hello, everybody. Welcome back to PW IELTS and TOEFL Prep. My name is Vandana. And in this session, we are going to be diving deep into multiple choice question types of IELTS reading module. So, without much ado, let's get started. Let's first dive deep into the strategies and see how to deal with this question type. Now, in multiple choice question, you are given a main question with four options, and it's recommended that initially you only read the main question, not the options. And once you read the main question, now you need to get the keywords from that question. And some good keywords would be proper nouns or numbers because they can't be paraphrased. Proper nouns means names. For example, September is a proper noun and September is September. There's no synonym for it. Similarly, numbers can't be paraphrased either. So these can be some good keywords. Locate them in the passage, get them from the main question, locate those keywords in the passage, and how will you locate? You will not start reading from the top. You need to scan for the right keyword. You need to scan the passage to find the right keyword. And like I said, language is going to be paraphrased. So do not try to find the same word that you have picked from the question. Keep an eye out for its synonym. Once you locate the relevant area where the keyword is, now you need to read that area in detail. And now read the options. When you have read that area in detail, now go back to the questions and read the options and eliminate the ones which you are sure that they just can't be the answer. Now, here's the thing. Out of four options, it's very easy to eliminate two. The other two, you need to read very intricately to get the right answer. Usually, out of four, that's what I'm saying, out of four, two options are very easy to eliminate. Read the remaining two very intricately and decide the answer. Each and every word matters. Do not ignore any single word from the options. Now, let's get started and do some practice. And here we have our very first question. So it says in paragraph A, the writer says that Kay Moyer was reminded about cloth kits by a shop she visited. B, a purchase she made. An outfit someone was wearing. Conversation with someone she knew. Well, first we are going to focus on only the main question, not the options. Now, the main question over here, let's read this once again. It says, in paragraph A, the writer says that K. Moyer. Now, here we have a proper noun, K. Moyer. It's a name. So K. Moyer was reminded about cloth kits. Now this is another proper noun. This is also a name. So she was reminded about cloth kits by A, B, C, D. Let's first read the paragraph and then we'll come back to the options. So the paragraph here says, I can't remember many of the clothes I wore before I was 6, but I have a vivid memory of a certain skirt whose patterns I can still trace in my mind. It was wraparound with a belt that threaded through itself, decorated with cats in two shades of green. I wore it with a knitted red jersey my mum bought in a jumble sale and brown sandals with flowers cut into the toes. Till now, no mention of cloth kits. It was 1979 and I was not yet 5. I forgot about that skirt for a long time, but when a girlfriend mentioned the name cloth kits, here we have the relevant area. But when a girlfriend mentioned the name cloth kits while we were chatting, it was as if a door suddenly opened on a moment in the past that resonated with vivid significance for me. The brand, founded in 1968, had by the late 1980s mostly vanished from people's lives, but by a combination of determination and luck, K. Moyer brought it back. So, coming back to the question, it says in paragraph A, the writer says that K. Moyer was reminded about cloth kits by a shop she visited. No, they are not talking about any shop being visited here. A purchase she made. She is talking about her mother buying a red jersey in a jumble sale. But till this area, there's no mention of cloth kits. And we must not forget the second proper noun is cloth kits. So no, even this cannot be the answer. An outfit someone was wearing. Well, she talks about a wraparound skirt, but it was not that somebody else was wearing this skirt. She herself was wearing this skirt. So even C does not go. D is the right answer, which says conversation with someone she knew. And this conversation is mentioned right here, where she says, I was not yet 5 and I forgot about the skirt for a long time. But when a girlfriend mentioned the name Cloth Kits while we were chatting, it was as if a door suddenly opened. So this conversation with a girlfriend reminded her of cloth kits. So answer 1 is D over here. Moving on now, let's take a look at the second question. So the second question says, what does the reader learn about cloth kits in the 1960s and 1970s? We'll come back to the options later. Let's first see the text here. All right. So it says cloth kits was created by the designer Anne Kennedy, who came up with the ingenious idea of printing a pattern straight onto colored fabric so that a paper pattern was not needed. It was accompanied by instructions that almost anyone could follow on how to cut the pieces out and sew them together. Now, the question is about 1960s and 70s, and this is where we see these numbers. Let's read this area. I was rebelling against the formulaic lines of textile design at that time, Kennedy says. My interest was in folk art and clothes that were simple to make, as I had lots of unfinished sewing disasters in my cupboard. Cloth Kits has always embodied the spirit of the late 1960s and 70s. So I'm putting this in brackets. I'll come back to this. Let's read further. It says its initial design was a dress in a geometric stripe in orange, pink, turquoise, and purple. It cost 25 shillings, 1.25 euros, and after it was featured in the Observer newspaper, Kennedy received more than 2,000 euros worth of orders. She ran the company from Lewes in Sussex, where at its peak it employed more than 400 people, selling to 44 countries worldwide. Sewing your own kits formed the core of the business, supplemented by knitwear. Kennedy's children demonstrated the patterns by wearing them in photographs. All right. Coming back to the question, it says, what does the reader learn about cloth kits in the 1960s and 1970s? Option A says its designs represented the attitudes of the time. Option B, its products were only favorable for the wealthy. Well, this can be crossed out, this can be eliminated. We can't say that only wealthy could afford it because here they are talking about just a very meager cost of 1.25 euros. So it's not like only wealthy could afford it. C option says its creator tried many times to launch her company. No such thing is mentioned that she tried many times to launch her company. So B and C can very easily be eliminated. Coming to now A and D. So D option says its management was spread across numerous countries. Well, she does talk about selling to 44 countries worldwide, but D option says its management was spread. Its management was spread across many countries. Number one, that. Number two, if you see, the question is very clearly talking about these years. That what does the reader learn about cloth kits in 1960s and 70s? And the answer is here. Cloth kits has always embodied. Embodied means to give a physical form. So cloth kits has always embodied the spirit of the late 1960s and 1970s. Now, spirit of late 1960s and 70s means that it has given a physical form to the attitude people had in 1960s and 70s. And this is something that goes with A, not D, right? So you saw yourself how easily B and C were eliminated. So the main choice comes down to the last two options after elimination, which you need to read very carefully and intricately to get the correct answer. Now let's move to the next question. And it says over here, why did cloth kits close in 1991? So again, we have a number. Now let's see what the text over here says. It says Kennedy sold the company in the late 1980s. Why? There had been a few administrative problems with postal strikes and a new computer system, which back then took up an entire room. But the times were changing as well. She says more women were going out to work and sewing less for their children. So, plenty of problems are mentioned here. That she sold the company in 1980s. Number one, because strikes had started occurring. Number two, there was a new computer system which was taking entire room. Number three, many women had started working and they were not interested in sewing. They were sewing less. So these are some of the problems. If we read further, it says she sold the company to one of her suppliers, who then sold it to Freeman's, which ran cloth kits alongside its own brand for a while, using Kennedy's impressive database. But its ethos as in beliefs, ideas, as a big corporate company, did not sit well alongside the alternative and artistic value of cloth kits. In 1991, cloth kits was made dormant. That means it was no more functioning, it got closed. And there, the story might have ended were it not for Moyer's fascination with discovering what happened to cloth kits. All right, let's now come back to options. So, A option says there were unexpected staffing problems. Well, yes, there were problems, as it's mentioned over here, postal strikes, but the question is about 1991, that why did cloth kits close in 1991, whereas this thing is about 1980. Such strikes were occurring in 1980. Plus, the company did not close in 1980. She sold the company. The company was made dormant in 1991. We need to see why. So A does not stand a chance because this was a problem that she was facing in 1980s. B, the funding for sewing activities was inadequate. Not at all. They are not saying any such thing about inadequate funding, so this can also be eliminated. C says Freeman's was an unsuitable partner, or D says records on Kennedy's database were lost. Nowhere are they saying that records on Kennedy's database were lost. C is the right option. Freeman's was an unsuitable partner. Now, why Freeman's was an unsuitable partner? It's written right here that its ethos, that means Freeman's ethos as a big corporate company, did not sit well alongside the alternative and artistic value of cloth kits. So, this is why he was, or this company was, an unsuitable partner. So, once again, if you see through elimination, the job becomes very simple. Moving on now to the last question, and it says, what point does the writer make in paragraph E? Let's check the paragraph first and then we'll come back to the options. So it says the ethos of cloth kits remains the same, and Moyer is proud that her fabric is printed either in London or the north of England, and that packaging is kept to an absolute minimum. I wanted to feel that everyone involved in the brand, from design to production, was part of a process I could witness. I couldn't see the point of manufacturing on the other side of the world, as that's not what cloth kits has ever been about. The revival of cloth kits has also, of course, coincided with a growing sense of dissatisfaction at our disposable society and the resulting resurgence of interest in skills such as sewing and knitting. Making your own clothes gives you a greater appreciation of the craftsmanship in the construction of a garment. Moyer says, when you know the process involved in making a skirt, you treasure it in a way you wouldn't if you had bought it from a mass producing manufacturer. Okay, coming back to the question, it says, what point does the writer make in paragraph E? Option A says, cloth kits will reach more markets than in the past. They're not saying any such thing. They're not, there's no comparison with the past. They're not saying that in future it will reach more markets. No. B option says cloth kits will need bigger premises, as in bigger warehouses than in the past. Nowhere are they saying any such thing. Then C option says people are more concerned about throwing away items than in the past. Or D option says people do less sewing now than in the past. Okay, D option can also be very easily eliminated because if you see, let's check. So yes, the answer is C, but let's understand why D also can be eliminated. D option says people do less sewing now than in the past, but here they are talking about resurgence. Resurgence as in coming back, the interest coming back. So look here, it says the revival of cloth kits has also, of course, coincided with a growing sense of dissatisfaction at our disposable society. Disposable society means where we keep on buying things and keep on discarding the old stuff. So, the revival of cloth kits has also, of course, coincided with a growing sense of dissatisfaction. That means people are getting dissatisfied from this culture of being a disposable society where they keep on buying new things and discarding old ones. This goes with C, which says people are more concerned about throwing away items than in the past. That's disposable society. And then if we read further, it says, and the resulting resurgence of interest in skills such as sewing and knitting. That means people are now once again taking interest in sewing and knitting, whereas option D says people do less sewing now than in past, but it says that there's a resurgence in such skills. So D also very easily can be eliminated. Hence, our answer is C. And these are the answers that we covered. I hope you will be able to ace multiple choice question with the help of elimination technique that we understood today. I'll see you in the next lecture very soon. Bye bye, everybody. Take care.